First-time homebuyers in BC. How do you get started? Where do you start? And how do you even know if you're ready to buy a home? If you've ever found yourself wondering these questions about how to get started buying your first home in BC, well, today's video is exactly what you need. I came across a really interesting article published by the Financial Post that I'm gonna make available in the description below, but we're gonna go over this article together today in this very video to let you know the exact reasons and how you can tell if you're ready to get into your very first property and start climbing the property ladder as a first-time home buyer in British Columbia. If that all sounds good, cue the music, let's get into it. My name is Darren, a realtor in Surrey, British Columbia, team leader with the German Group and realtor with McDonald Realty. If this is your first time on this channel and you want to learn absolutely everything there is to know about living in Surrey BC, White Rock BC, or anything to do with BC real estate in general, consider subscribing so you are the first to learn about any of the market changes or area information that we're producing on a regular basis. People just like you are booking online meetups with me and my team all the time who are considering relocating to the areas that we serve, and the good news is we're here to help you too. Whether you're moving in the next 9 days, 90 days, or even 9 months from now, feel free to set up a meeting with the provided link to meet me and my team, and we'll do everything we can to help get you all the information you're looking for to help ensure that your move is as good and the best that it could be. Today's video was spawned by an article that I actually saw come out a couple weeks ago, but I thought it was so good that I wanted to make sure to share it with you. And it is all related to climbing the property ladder, and more so getting your first grasp on the rungs on that property ladder by getting into your first home, buying your first home in British Columbia. How do you even know that you're ready? How do you know that you're financially prepared? How do you know that you've got all the pieces in place to make sure that it's a smart idea and a smart investment for yourself? Well, before we jump into that, let's talk about that investment piece a little bit. And it's actually highlighted in this Financial Post article where they're talking about the average growth in price of real estate since the 1980s. It goes on to say, if the 2000s have taught us anything, it's that buying and holding a quality primary residence is a cheat code for tax-free equity gains. Looking back at every 12-month span since 1980, home prices have risen at an average of 5.78%, which I am assuming is a number Canada-wide, not necessarily specific to the lower mainland of British Columbia, but that's totally fine. That means if you're adequately qualified and financially fit, getting on the property ladder earlier in life can put you on the fast track to a secure retirement. Speaking of investments, there's an interesting number produced by Statistics Canada that I think you're going to want to know if you're somebody that's currently renting a home. And we've done lots of information about whether it's better to rent or to buy. And one of our favorite, most recent videos is this one right here that you can check out, which we'll also link in the description. That'll give you a lot more to think about than just what you're going to find in terms of a checklist in today's video. But the number from Stats Canada that I want to show you is this. The title of this paragraph is "The Net Worth of Homeowners Has More Than Doubled Since the Millennium. The rising home prices seen in parts of the country can lead to wealth gains for homeowners. According to the survey of Financial Security, the net worth of homeowners of all ages rose from $323,700 in 1999 to $685,400 in 2019. In comparison, the net worth of renters of all ages rose from $14,600 to $24,000 over this period. So roughly, homeowners gained about $350,000 in net worth in that period, and renters, they gained under $10,000. So that is quite the figure. And if that doesn't help sway you one way or the other, be sure to watch that video that I just mentioned. But anyways, let's get back into this Financial Post article. Hey, real quick, I don't run any ads on my videos, intentionally anyways, and put in about 8 hours every week trying to bring you the very best content there is while keeping it somewhat entertaining too. The only ask that I have is that you help me spread the word on my videos so we can help more home buyers and sellers be wildly successful with real estate. Get it right the first time and dodge all the ways that people typically get burned when they buy or sell a home. Now, the only way that we can do that is if you give this video just a simple like to help other people like you find the content. That's the only thing we ask you to do. Don't even worry about subscribing. It will take you about 3 seconds and it would mean the absolute world to me, but more importantly, it may change the world for someone else. Thanks for clicking the like button, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So this article is based on a checklist to help you understand whether you think you are ready to buy a home. And they've got some interesting things in here that I figure we'll go over together, and we'll talk about how necessary they really are. So the first one is you're past the age of majority in your province. Lenders can't discriminate based on age as long as you're a legal adult, but you're past the age of majority, so you kind of have your stuff together and you're legally able to buy a home. You're at least a permanent resident of Canada, of course, or at least you're a Canadian citizen. You've got job security and are past any probation period at work. Now that's an interesting one because if you're on probation at work, the bank simply is not going to lend you money. Now this is different from somebody that's on contract work for maybe a fixed period of time, but the reason a bank won't lend money if you're on probation is because you could easily get fired without your employer having to give you compensation. This means they can easily get rid of you. So usually the bank won't lend any money to anybody that is still on a probationary period. The next one is you've got at least 5% down payment, and the minimum on a home valued up to $500,000. So you do need a minimum of 5% up to $500,000. And when you go above that, anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million, you need 10% on that value. And then after that, it's actually 20% over $1 million. So there's a little bit of a sliding scale there in requirement for down payments. But we hear from a lot of people that think they need 20% to buy their first home. That's simply not true. So anything under $500,000, you only need 5%. You've got at least 1.5% of the property value for closing costs. That's certainly a good one as well. You've built up strong credit with a 680 plus credit score, but preferably 720 or better. Now, there is lending that you can get with lower credit scores, but certainly you're going to get better bank rates and better terms of your lending the better your credit score is. So that's not necessarily a bad one. I do agree with most of these so far. You have at least 2 credit accounts with meaningful credit limits. If you don't have a credit account, they're not going to lend you any money because they don't know if you've got a history of paying it back. So that's certainly something that is a good one. Your estimated housing outlay is less than 39% of your gross income. It goes on to say that some personal finance gurus recommend 32% or less, but that's not realistic anymore. In lender terms, housing outlay means your mortgage payment calculated with your expected rate plus 2 percentage points, the government stress test requirement. This also includes monthly property taxes, heating costs, and half of any condo fees. So the bank is not going to lend you more than what they think you can afford. You still likely have car payments and gas and groceries, obviously cell phone, all that sort of thing. So they need to make sure that you can actually live your life. And that's why they've got these debt servicing ratios. So this is actually quite accurate in this regard. And getting a mortgage broker to help you go through this will obviously help you navigate that a little bit better. The next one goes on to say your total housing outlay plus debt payments are less than the typical bank limit of 44% of gross income. Very similar to what I just mentioned. You also need to prove enough income, or you have a co-signer. So you need to be able to afford the mortgage with your income, or if you've got a co-signer whose income might boost your ability to borrow more money, sort of thing. So you definitely need to be able to qualify for that. That's pretty important. You're prepared for rising property taxes, rising condo fees, rising utility costs, and continuous home maintenance costs. Now, this is probably one where a lot of people get it wrong, and you don't necessarily need this when you're going into buying a property, but let's be frank, things get more expensive. Everything is tending to go up these days, especially coming out of COVID and inflationary times and whatnot. So it's not that you actually need this, but it actually is really good advice, simply because things are going to get more expensive. You think they're going to get cheaper. The answer is obviously that they're not. Next one goes on to say you're a disciplined spender. New homes are money pits, and there's nothing worse than digging yourself into a housing-induced debt hole with high-cost revolving credit. Now, I wouldn't say that a house is a money pit. I wouldn't call it a money pit. I would say that it's a great investment, as we just saw the numbers at the start of this video about what people net worth is over the course of time, and they've over doubled. I wouldn't really call that a money pit. That's obviously a really good investment, but I think what the author of this article is going on to say is obviously owning a home can be expensive. There's nothing in a house that tends to be cheap anymore. So you do have to be prepared for for emergencies and have some money set aside so you're kind of prepared, for anything that might pop up. The next one says you've got a 5+ year time horizon. You can ride out the market hiccups and not get trapped in a home that's worth less than the mortgage. I think that's a great one. I do see a lot of people who buy for very, very short-term thinking, and the market doesn't always cooperate short-term. It has cooperate long-term for many, many people, but you can't really time it short-term. So that 5-year horizon is hopefully going to smooth out any bumps along the way. And ideally, if you do need to sell after that 5-year period, you've certainly made some equity on the property. The next one goes on to say you've done the math and buying makes more sense than renting or parental basement squatting after factoring in the monthly payment savings, home ownership costs, appreciation potential, government rebates and incentives, opportunity costs of investing in something else, and so on. Wow, that's a lot of math. That's a lot of variables to consider. What I would really suggest is when you are buying a home, you are getting into the property market. And if you ever choose to upgrade, you now have an asset that you can trade in to get something bigger. So certainly being in the market, I think, is the number one point. And, if you are currently renting, but it costs you slightly more to buy, let's go back to the net worth of a homeowner versus a renter. And obviously a homeowner is significantly more. So even if it's costing you a little bit more money to own, it's obviously a much, much better idea. So I don't quite agree with that one. The next one, you've been pre-approved, meaning a lender has reviewed your application and preferably your income and down payment documentation. You're certainly not ready to go looking at houses quite yet. If you don't have that in place, a pre-qualification and a pre-approval are definitely not the same thing. So you want to review that a little bit in that regard. And we've got lots of videos on our YouTube channel that you could check out if you want to learn a little bit more of that. Just Google or type in, not Google, but pre-approved. You developed an honest monthly budget. That's good advice. You want to make sure you know what your expenses are. You've studied which mortgage term is best suited to you. So I do love that. You definitely want to get educated on the types of mortgages that are out there, how they work, what the penalties are when they're calculated, all that sort of stuff. There's lots to go with mortgages. So you want to find somebody you can trust that can help educate you on that sort of thing. And actually, a lot of this stuff is actually covered in our BC home buyers course. So if you haven't ever seen that or heard about that and you're interested in learning about the BC home buyers course, I will link that in the description as well, so you can check that out, because there's lots of good information there to protect home buyers, not only on the mortgage side but also on the purchase side as well. So the next one goes on to say you've got access to 3+ months of living expenses just in case. Not a bad idea. I mean, stuff happens. You want to have some extra cash, and you're able to buy in an area with good appreciation potential. This is always an interesting one, the good appreciation potential, because most real estate, especially in the lower mainland, is going to appreciate at roughly the same values. It's very rare to see a certain area significantly outpace, let's say, a neighboring area. So it's not to say that's bad, but I mean, obviously that's a lot of speculation what's being suggested in there, and past performance doesn't always necessarily guarantee future performance. So, it's an interesting conversation, one that you could certainly talk with your real estate professional or with us about. So, interesting they had mentioned that. It goes on to say, this is not an exhaustive checklist, but if you check all these boxes, the odds are you should be buying. If you don't, embrace the freedom of renting and invest the monthly cash flow savings. It doesn't have to be much more complicated than that. I love that they said that. You don't necessarily have to buy. This is a realtor telling you don't necessarily have to buy, but you do need to do something with your money to make sure that's invested, so you're not just losing money every year due to inflation. That's like having a bucket full of money with a big hole at the bottom. So you need to make sure it's invested in something. Ideally, real estate, I think, is the best one. Of course, I'm a realtor, so take that for what it is, but it's true. That's what's made the most amount of millionaires. So that's generally some pretty good advice. So anyways, I thought this was a really interesting article. I just wanted to share it with you. What we've done is we've made all those links available in the description below. And now you've got the idea of what this checklist might look like if you're someone that is considering buying their first home in British Columbia. Of course, I'm always curious if you think there's anything on this checklist that might be missing, something that should have been added to this checklist to help make sure first-time buyers are well protected and well prepared to buy their first home. So if you can think of anything like that, please leave a comment below and let me know, and help anybody else watching this video be better prepared when it comes time to buy their first home as well. Now that you watch this and you are a first-time buyer, you are uber prepared to be able to get into your first property. So naturally, if you need any help in the areas that we service, we would love to hear from you at the German group here. And if you don't, we've got contacts all over British Columbia, so we would be happy to get you in in touch with one of our partner agents anywhere in British Columbia to make sure that you are very well taken care of when it comes time to buy your next home. I'm glad you learned something today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we're posting on a regular basis, and we'll definitely look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.